In this video, I'm going to demonstrate a few tips and tricks in terms of editing MIDI notes in ProTools and just dealing with MIDI data in general. So one trick is when I'm entering in notes, I can adjust whether I want to enter in a series of notes that are snapped to the grid, or I can enter longer valued notes as well. So I'm going to change. I'm going to work on this track. I'm going to change to notes, note view, and I'm going to change from the Smart tool to the pencil tool. And right now I have freehand selected, and so if I enter in a note and click and drag, it just enters in a long note, and of course the duration is also snapped to the grid. If I change this now to line instead of freehand, as I click and drag, it actually enters in a series of notes the length of my grid. So if I change my grid, for instance, to half notes now, or if I change it to be 16th notes, and you can see as I'm entering, as long as I keep my mouse pressed down, I can adjust that. In fact, if I click on, all of these are now selected. If I click on here with the hand, I can move them all that way as well. So this is handy sometimes if you have a series of notes, repeated notes you want to enter in, or you, this is particularly handy if you're writing in a percussion part or something like that, and you want different durations and you want them to just repeat like this. This is a great way to enter in notes that way. In terms of a review, in terms of selecting notes, if I go back to my Smart tool, I can click and drag to select notes. I can also, if I bring the cursor over a note and I just click on it, and now if I hold down the Shift key, I can add other notes to it, and they don't have to be consecutive. So if I do something like this, what I can do now is, let's say I want to copy all of that. So I copy it. Now I click somewhere else in the track and I hit paste, and it pastes just those notes that I had selected. So that's kind of a handy trick as well. So using the Shift key when we've selected a note to select another note is a nice way to extend our selection. Another handy trick is when we're entering in any MIDI data on any track, if we want to preview what the sound sounds like, we can click on this little MIDI keyboard over here. Right, and same with this one here. Whoops. These are the different views. Whoops. Oh, I realized my mistake is I'm in clip view. I need to change this to note view. And now let me make this a little bigger, and now I can click. Okay, and then these little arrows up here and down here are ways to scroll up and down through that view. Okay, so we can get see. So if you're not seeing everything, you might use those. You can also, if you have on my trackpad, I can 2-finger drag up and down, but I have to be over, not in the track. I'm doing that now, it's not working. But if I do it while I'm hovering over this little keyboard, now I'm 2-finger dragging up and down. So that'll work as well to be able to see different octaves and ranges and things like that. The next thing I want to show you is how to transpose notes and move the notes around. So if I select, let's say, these notes, and now if I bring my cursor over it and I get the hand, if I want to just quickly copy them, I'm just going to hold down the Option key, Alt on a PC, and I'm going to click and drag, and now you can see, and then let go, and now it's pasted that. So Option, click, drag is a nice way to just take a selection and copy it. If you just want to move it, I'll just now click on this, and now I can move them. If you want to drag the whole selection up without moving it right or left, if I just hold down the Shift key before I now click, and now I'm moving it up or down, but I can't move it right or left actually. So it's going to keep it locked So it's keeping it locked in a rhythmic position. And then the same can be said if I want to move it right or left without moving it up or down. I'm going to click on it. Sorry, I'm going to shift and then click on it. And now as I move right or left, I can't actually move it up or down. So by selecting notes or even selecting a single note, if I hold down the shift key, so I'm going to shift and then click on it. If I start to move it up, it'll only let me transpose the note up or down without moving it right or left. And then the same with moving it right or left rhythmically is if I shift click on the note and begin to move it right or left, it won't allow me to go up or down. So it's a nice sort of lock feature sometimes, which comes in handy. Because sometimes you click on a note and then you're like, it's like moving all over the place and you can't remember where it was. And so that's kind of a handy trick. So there's some nice keyboard shortcuts for moving notes around as well. And I believe I went over this in the last tutorial, but I'll just review this as well. So if I select a note or a series of notes, what I can do is I can simply move them up or down by, if I hold Control and then on my numeric pad on my computer keyboard, hit the the plus or minus arrows, minus for moving down, plus for moving up. So it's Control and then plus or minus. On a Windows machine, it would be Start plus or minus. So here's Control minus, Control plus, and then if I just do plus or minus without the Control key, now I'm moving it by the grid size, or sorry, by this nudge size here, not the grid size. So you can see my grid, but I'm nudging it a little bit differently here, right, as I'm moving. So again, I'm going minus, moves it earlier in time, plus moves it later in time. And again, this is on the numeric keypad, plus and minus. So if I want to move it, let's say by 16th notes, I would select 16th in nudge and now hit minus, or plus, sorry, that was plus, this is minus. And then again, to move it up or down, Control plus, up, Control minus, down. Another way you can move notes up or down is with your arrow keys on the computer keyboard. If I just hit up arrow, down arrow. If I want to move any of the notes up an octave or down an octave, I do shift arrow. So I'm just holding down the shift key. So that was just holding down the shift key, and then while I'm holding down the shift key, pressing the up or down arrows. So that's how we can move notes around either with the cursor, with the pencil tool, sorry, with this little hand tool, versus then using some keyboard shortcuts. These are features that every DAW, every DAW will have. It's just a matter of finding out how and where they do that. This information in terms of moving notes. Every DAW is slightly different. And so every time we work on something like ProTools versus Ableton Live, or Logic Pro or Reaper, what we have to do is figure out exactly, how we can move the notes. It's not like every DAW uses the arrow keys this way, or the plus or minus keys or things like that. So part of this is actually learning how each program does this. So far, everything I've been showing you, I've been doing in this track view under note view for the track. I can also do everything I was talking about in terms of inputting the notes, inputting series of notes, selecting notes in this MIDI editor view. Okay, so if I want to copy and paste things, same thing. If I want to move the notes around anyway, using, right, so all of this works the same way in both views. And again, just keep in mind that if I want to be able to just move notes using nudge, I want to make sure that I have nudge selected here in the expanded grid nudge display. So then I can adjust the nudge size in this view And I can also adjust the grid size in this view. It doesn't affect the main view over here, this track view. Okay, so if I adjust this to half notes, you notice that the grid didn't change over there. So that's very important to keep in mind, is that we're going to control grid and nudge within this edit window or edit read area using these here as well. So, and then same with slip and grid mode. This is independent of then the track view up here in the main area of the Pro Tools session. Okay, so if I want to, let's say I'm going to grab a note and I'm going to extend the length of it, and I want to split it up. All I have to do is I'm going to click right, if I actually just hold Control and Shift and drag my mouse, and you can see it starts to, this little kind of knife shows up, and if I click, it'll just add points where I can cut it. And actually I can also consolidate it again. You'll see the little band-aid here, and it kind of puts them together. So if now what's interesting about this is I believe it's doing it by the nudge size it looks. So let me zoom way in here and change the nudge to 1/8 notes. I'm going to change my grid also to 1/8 notes so I can see this as well. So you can see that I can cut there and there. Oh, I can do it in between too. So I guess it'll let me do it wherever I want. So that's kind of important to keep in mind. So if I want to, do a series of cuts here, I can do this. So there we go. So that's how I can split up a note and then also consolidate it as well. Handy little feature. Okay, I'm going to put this back. And then the one other interesting thing about this particular view, when I'm in this MIDI editor view, there's a little button up here on the left called Notation Display Enable. And what this does is actually displays the notes in music notation. So, and I can move the notes. I can't change the duration. I would need to do that by editing it back in this view. But if you like to be able to look at actual music notation, this is pretty handy to be able to do this. So that's another view there. And we'll go over this in another tutorial in terms of then some editing features in this view as well. So, but know that that exists there as well. The last thing I want to show you is how you can take any MIDI clip and make it faster or slower. So what we're actually going to do is do what's called time MIDI or MIDI time compression. So I'm just going to take, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to split up this clip. So some handy shortcuts for this is if I just click where I want the clip to be separated, I just go under Edit and go to Separate Clip at Selection, or I can hit Command E. And now that separates it from this other clip, and I can move it to wherever I want. If at any point you want to take two different clips like this, I'm going to Shift click to select them both. And now under Edit, I can go to Consolidate Clip. And now it consolidates them. So again, I'm going to just click on this part right here, hit Command E on my keyboard, Control E on Windows, and now I'm going to drag this over here. So what I want to do is I want to make this either twice as fast or twice as slow. And I don't want to have to go in here and sort of manually do that, right? That would take me a long time, moving each note, making them twice as short or twice as long. So there's some handy shortcuts for this. And again, a lot of DAWs will give you this feature. It's just a matter of where you do it. In Pro Tools, what we do is we're going to go to our Smart Edit tool and actually just click on this Trim tool. And I'm going to 2-finger click and select this TCE, which stands for Time Compression Expansion. So I'm going to click on that. So now I'm using the Time Compression Expansion tool. And as you see, as I bring the cursor over this MIDI region, you see the little clock on the Trim tool. And so if I click and drag, if I drag it this way, it makes it twice as long. And in fact, as long as I'm in grid mode, it'll snap it to the grid and make it exactly twice as long. If I do this, just putting it back, if I do it in slip mode, now it'll just do proportionally to wherever I want. So this is going to take it, and it's going to be way out of time. Okay, so it's not going to keep it snapped to the grid. So just be careful with that. I mean, sometimes you might want to do that and have something really funky and weird and have it be it's completely in its own time. I'm not going to do that. So I want to snap it to our grid so everything stays aligned. So there's twice as fast. Let me go back to the original. Sorry, twice as slow, right? So here's my original. Now I'm going to make that twice as slow. Okay, and I'm going to make it, there's my original, now twice as fast, so half the length. Okay, and I'm going to make it even faster. Cool. So let me go back to the original. There's another handy way that I can do this using a little bit of math. If I go to spot mode and now click on the clip, I'll get this spot dialog button. And so if I want to make it twice as long, what I can just do is change the duration here. And I'm just going to make it 2, right? So it was 1 measure long. Now I'm making it 2 measures long. Boom. So, or if I click on it again and say, make it half as long. So it was 2 measures. Now I'll make it 1 measure. If I click on it again, I want to make it even faster. I'm going to make this 0 and make this, I think 5. Let's try that. Nope, that didn't work. So let's see. Okay, I'm going to click on it and I get this dialog, and so my duration is 1. I'm going to make this, so that's bars beats. So I'm going to make this 0 and I'm going to make it now 2 beats, right? Instead of, this is 4 beats long, I'm making it 2 beats. So now you can see it's made it 2 beats long. So, so that's a really handy way. If you want to use slip mode or spot mode, I can do that. If I go back to slip mode, it lets me drag it to any length I want, not snapping it onto a grid. Or if I want to use just it in grid mode, and I can just, you know, keep track of your grid. For instance, what I might do is change my grid to be maybe quarter notes or something, so it's a little bit easier to see, or half notes. And now I can see I've got, so it's 2 quarter notes long. Now it's 4 quarter notes long. Now it's 8 quarter notes long. Now it's 16, right? So I can, it's always proportionally and it's staying the same. So that is how we can time, compression, expand MIDI notes in Pro Tools.